I'm feeling good. I'm feeling tight. Who's my next opponent?
I hate to break it to you. It's the Battlin BOXER.
Oh, God! Don't worry. The way I'm feeling, I can take on anyone. Bring 'em on. Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. You're just going to have to work with me on this one. A couple of days ago, I got insanely painful surgery. I was getting my bussy tightened, and as a result, I can't really do the, YouTube voice anymore. So, just listen to me talk about this dog shit deck and pretend I'm being, 30% more enthusiastic, which, for a list like this, would end up at about 30%. Presenting Battlin BOXER. So here's the list, and we've completely stolen it from Libertalia Game Supply. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the #1 place to go if you need a pack simulator, a card database, or want to read a wealth of strategy articles. They also post breakdowns and lists from every major TCG and Master Duel tournament, including the Master Circuit series. Give them a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's blast into Boxers. Battlin BOXER is a deck with history. These bumbling boxers debuted alongside a series of dragons that ruled the format back in Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy, though I can't seem to remember what they were called. Anyway, these monsters weren't competitive against those format-destroying super threats, but they were played. For people who couldn't afford the rulers, these were a godsend, a pretty good deck with game against everything, a monster that nobody else could make in lead yoke, and a low enough rarity that even kids on a college income could pick them up. I remember the Boxers very fondly, and I remember being super excited to see what would become of these battlers as they got future waves of support. Except that future support never really came. There were a few additional cards that changed absolutely nothing dribbled out in subsequent core sets, and then the legacy support extended to nearly every archetype in World Superstars, but despite these monsters' popularity, there was never any attempt to make them playable. Until now. In a desperate search for 3 playable fire archetypes, Konami realized there was actually only one total good set of fire monsters, and as a result was required to make legacy Boxer support. And what they came up with was not bad. In terms of what you can do for an archetype that tries to make a rank 4 and go to the battle phase, these are about as good as you could hope for. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, the Battlin Boxers. We've got 3 copies of Promoter. If your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you contribute this card to special summon up to 2 Battlin Boxer monsters with different names from your deck, except for Promoter. This card can then be banished from the graveyard to increase or decrease the level of all your Boxers by 1, and of course, both of those are hard once per turns, and unfortunately lock you into anything but Battlin Boxer specials. Next up is Battlin Boxer Uppercutter. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Battlin Boxer monster or a counter trap from your deck to your hand, except Battlin Boxer Uppercutter. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can either special a Battlin Boxer from your graveyard, except a Uppercutter, or you can set a counter trap from your graveyard to your field. Now, you can only use one of those effects per turn, which means you're going to have to manage this card. We're playing 3 copies of Battlin Boxer Sparer. If you control a Battlin Boxer monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and regrettably, I am reticent to inform you there's a second line of text on this card. If you do, you can't conduct your battle phase for the rest of the turn. After that, we've got 3 copies of Battlin Boxer Chief Second. During your main phase, you can normal a Battlin Boxer in addition to your normal summoner set, and when an opponent's monster declares an attack while you control a warrior or a fire monster, you can special this card from your hand, negate the attack, then banish a monster on the field until the end phase. We're playing 2 copies of Switch Hitter, which when normal summoned can target a Battlin Boxer in your graveyard and special summon it. It locks you into Battlin Boxers. 1 copy of Shadow, a 4-star that during your main phase can detach a material from a Battlin Boxer disease you control and special this card from your hand, and 1 copy of Glassjaw, which if targeted for an attack is destroyed, and when it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, can add a Battlin Boxer monster from your graveyard back to your hand. For non-engine, we're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom Joy Spring, 3 Droll and Lockbird, and 2 Nibiru. For spells, we're on 3 copies of Infernoble Arms Durandal. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can add a level 5 or lower fire warrior from your deck to your hand, then destroy this card, and if this card is sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster is sent to the graveyard, you can target a level 5 or lower fire warrior monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and you can special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for warriors. We're on 3 copies of Book of Eclipse, 3 copies of Crossout Designator, 1 Called By, and 1 Rhoda. For traps, we're on 3 Infinite Impermanents, and then 1 of Battlin Boxing Cross Counter. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you can destroy a Battlin Boxer or a number Xyz, and if you do, negate the activation, destroy the monster, and apply the following effect. Special summon a Battlin Boxer Xyz monster from your extra deck with a different name than the first monster, and attach this card to it as material, and 1 copy of Flamvel Counter. This might seem like a weird inclusion. It can negate spell trap card activations by banishing fire monsters with 200 defense from your graveyard, and what do you know? These happen to fulfill that condition. In the extra, we've got 3 copies of Zeus, 1 number C39, Battlin Boxer General Kaiser. This card gains 200 for each material attached to it, and once per turn when your opponent would special summon a monster, you can detach 2 materials from the card, negate the summon, and destroy that monster. And if it's got Nova Kaiser as material, once per turn when an attack is declared involving your Battlin Boxer monster and an opponent's monster, you can send a Battlin Boxer monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard and attach that opponent's monster to this card as material. We are playing 1 copy of Battlin Boxer Star Cetus. This is a 3-mat level 4 monster, and then once per chain during the battle step, if your Battlin Boxer monster battles an opponent's monster, you can detach a material from this card to negate the effects of that monster while it is face up on the field, and it can't be destroyed by battle. Your opponent takes the battle damage you would have taken instead. This is the new man you may have seen in some Rescue Ace profiles, Battlin Boxer King Dempsey. 2 level 4s. When this card special summoned, you can take a level 4 or lower fire warrior monster or a Battlin Boxing spell trap from your deck, either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard, and as a quick, can detach a material from a monster you control and attach the following effect. Your opponent cannot target Battlin Boxer monsters you control with card effects for the rest of the turn. Finally, we have the big daddy of them all, Battlin Boxer Lead Yoke, which can be made with 2 level 4 Battlin Boxer monsters, and if a Battlin Boxer monster you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach a material from this card instead, and if a material is removed from this card gains 800 attack. We are playing 1 copy of Cheat Commissioner. This makes all monsters your opponent controls attack if able, and while you control another Battlin Boxer, your opponent's monsters can't target this card for attacks. When an attack is declared involving another Battlin Boxer you control, you can detach 2 materials from this card, look at your opponent's hand, and then steal one of their spells. For additional monsters, we've got our links: Access Code Talker, Nightmare Unicorn, Phoenix, and Masquerena. In the side, we've got triple Gamciel, triple Bestial, triple Dark Ruler No More, triple Gozen Match, and triple Solemn Judgment. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Trap Tricks, and if these cards can't beat the hell out of some little girls, then we are going to have to find a new deck to play. We've opened combo. We're going to begin with a copy of Promoter. Thankfully, our opponent doesn't imperm it, but they will imperm the unfortunate copy of Uppercutter next, so we are going to have to reveal that we're playing Crossout Designator because our deck's not very good. We'll activate the effect of the Uppercutter. That's going to grab from deck to hand Flamvel Counter. Then let's Durandal, targeting our Uppercutter, and then activating the effect of the Durandal to grab ourselves a Sparer. From here, we can go to King Dempsey. We'll activate the effect. That's going to grab from deck to hand a copy of Switch Hitter. Then we'll Dempsey so nothing can be targeted before going for Switch Hitter and activating the effect, targeting the Uppercutter. From here, we can activate the effect of the Promoter and Graveyard and go into our 3-mat 5 Battlin Boxer General Kaiser. We'll pass back to our opponent who draws an imperm. In draw phase, we're going to try and Dempsey to prevent targeting. They'll chain imperm, and unfortunately, we'll just let that resolve. They're going to go for a Murmello. We're going to chain cross counter in order to negate it and get it off the field, and that attaches it to a Lead Yoke from our extra. They're going to set a copy of Floodgate Trap Hole. Should just be easy from this position. We'll grab the top decked Durandal into a copy of Switch Hitter in order to grab Dempsey. They will Floodgate our Switch Hitter, which is fine. We'll go Dempsey here in order to grab from deck to hand a copy of Sparer, then go to the battle phase, Dempsey in, Lead Yoke in, and then of course we can activate the effect of the Dempsey in order to cycle, using this Uppercutter for a copy of Sparer from our graveyard. That'll be just enough to take the W. Our second match showcases one of the biggest weaknesses of this deck, an ability to play into an established setup. Our opponent's on Sulfacor. They're going to begin with a copy of Dragon Shrine, sending a Dark Worm. They're going to go Dark Worm to their side of the field and Supreme King Gate 0 to the hand. From here, they're going to normal summon a copy of Diviner of the Herald and send Trias Hierarchica. God, I love doing this. What a cool card. They're going to go for Diviner here to get a copy of Cutia from deck and activate the effect. Afterwards, they're just going to go ahead and link into a Beyond the Pendulum. I let this resolve because I figure I need something a little more profitable off of this Infinite Impermanence. After all, it's our only piece of non-engine, and I wanted to trade for, like, I don't know, Apollosa. Unfortunately, they do get to activate the effect of Harmonizing Magician, and 6 + 4 = 10, so that's out the window. They're going to go for a Masquerena and a Kulia alongside this Baron and pass back to us. We can at least trade for one of them. Right on time, Ash Blossom. We'll go ahead and try to negate the effect of the Baron de Fleur, but they're going to go Kulia instead, and then at point of resolution, we'll fire off the Promoter. That's going to walk directly into a Musica, which will get it off the field. We'll go Chief second, and then get out this Sparer, to which our opponent will activate Masquerena, and we will hit that concede button. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing one of my favorite new decks of the Dune format, Branded Chimera. I think this deck is really neat, but it does tend to suffer from the exact problem our opponent is currently suffering from, drawing a whole bunch of non-engine and no starters. We're going to begin with a copy of Rhoda. Afterwards, we're going to normal summon this copy of Promoter, and it gets Ash Blossomed. Thankfully, we have Called by the Grave, or else we would not be using this footage. Next, we're going to summon a Glassjaw and an Uppercutter from deck, and then we'll activate the effect of the Uppercutter into an infinite impermanence. That's fine. We've got a Spar in hand. We can make this work. We're going to go King Dempsey. That's going to grab from deck to hand a copy of Shadow. We'll Shadow itself out, targeting the Dempsey, then activate Glassjaw's effect to cycle back this Promoter. We'll special summon this copy of Sparer, go into Lead Yoke, set 2, and pass back to our opponent. They'll draw for turn. We'll go Dempsey in standby, and then the effect of Uppercutter as well to special summon back the Glassjaw. They'll go for a Prospy, and they're really looking for anything here. A Mirror Sword Knight, Coddle would be great. Oh, there's one of them right there. They're going to go ahead and grab that copy of Mirror Sword Knight. They'll normal summon it, then activate the effect, and we'll fire off Cross Counter. After that, they are just going to go ahead and pass turn. We might be able to OTK them here if our deck was any good, but unfortunately it isn't. They're going to Book of Moon our only play, so we'll just go to the battle phase and put in 4,200. They do have one remaining play at their disposal, but unfortunately for them, our entire board counters it. They draw for turn. That's a great draw. They're going to normal summon this copy of Fallen of Albaz, go for it into an infinite impermanence. After Point of Resolution, they are going to fire off this copy of Fusion Destiny into a copy of Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. We will Zeus here. They will DP in response. We'll infinite impermanence, and it's okay that we went massively minus to do so because we can just get them on the crackback. We're going to go for the effect of the Glassjaw Graveyard, add back the Promoter, draw for turn, and we didn't even need it. Let's normal summon the Promoter, go to the battle phase, and wipe this one up. So it's time for game 2, and though our hand looks okay, our opponent's looks a lot better. All they have to find off this copy of Pot of Prosperity is any sort of starter, and what do you know? They find one pretty much almost immediately. Branded Fusion, and Coddle, if they want to lose to Droll and Lockbird. They're going to go for the Branded Fusion, then they'll activate the Branded Fusion, making a copy of Rindbroom, which sends a copy of Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws, to the graveyard and allows them to get a Mirror Sword Knight. They're going to go from Sword Knight into Baphomet. We do have the infit for this, but they have the Book of Moon, which allows them to put it face down. It resolves, they add 2 cards to hand, and this is never where you want to be. 4 cards deep against a Gazelle, the King of Phantom Beasts. That's going to eat one of the cards in our hand at the end of the turn, and we don't have too many of those to spare. They're going to go for an FD to get into DPE. Set 1, sheesh, you're being very stingy with those Chimera Fusions, and pass back. We do draw the Ash for the Mirror Sword Knight, but honestly, maybe it's even worth keeping to make them more aggressively DPE. We go for Chief Second into Chief Second. They activate DPE. We'll cross out, I guess, pretending maybe it can hit DPE. Let's just go next. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and what do? You play Floodgates. We're going to begin with a copy of Promoter. It gets ashed, so we set, goes, and match and pass. That's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Thankfully, it's going to be enough. Our opponent's going to normal summon a copy of Gazelle. They're going to activate the effect. We will activate Ghost and Match. They will grab from deck to hand a copy of Chimera Fusion, get in for 15, and pass turn. Oh, thank goodness. We draw for turn, and that's a pretty good one. We'll go for Promoter, and then we will activate the effect of the Promoter in order to grab from deck a copy of Uppercutter and a copy of Glassjaw. We'll activate the effect of the Uppercutter in order to grab from deck to hand a Flamvel counter. From here, we can go King Dempsey, activate its effect in order to grab from deck to hand a Cross counter, then activate the effect of the Dempsey in order to cycle back this copy of Promoter. We're going to go from Chief Second into Switch Hitter into this copy of Glassjaw, go to the battle phase, do a ton of damage, then in main phase 2, we can banish the Promoter from the graveyard to modulate these guys up to 5 and overlay for our Chaos number. After doing that, we'll set 2 and pass back to our opponent, who draws for turn a card that does not out our board. They're going to begin with a copy of Albus's Nullius Fullius, as Edo Pro is so inclined to call it. We will cross counter that. They'll go for Fusion Destiny. We'll Ash Blossom that, and then they'll pass turn. Well, 3,200 lines up perfectly with our General Kaiser, so let's just go to combat, and somehow we walked with it. So we're back with the deck, and while I won't pretend that Chimera takes a lot of brain cells to beat, it's shocking that we did it all. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, you can play super low to the ground. You don't really need to ever commit to anything. The new support essentially creates an end board for you in archetype of Dempsey and the 2 counter traps off of 1 card, with room for extension into Lead Yoke or Protection or Commander Kaiser for interruption. 2, non-engine space. The engine in the deck is small, allowing you to load up on cards that reinforce your end board in interrupts. Since the engine is extremely recursive, a Glassjaw and Uppercutter allow you to keep pumping out a conga line of dudes or counter traps for Xyz plays and interrupts when your board inevitably gets broken. You can really load up on guns. And 3, the deck now has access to a potent interrupt in the battle phase in Chief Second, who special summons himself from the hand and negates an attack on a Battlin BOXER monster while also banishing a monster your opponent controls until the end phase. This can stop Pearly Happiness loops or Zeus Desperation plays quite effectively. And the cons. 1, Damage output and OTK potential. You would kind of expect that a deck focused on battling wouldn't have this problem, but it does. Promoter is your best card by miles, but it locks you into Boxers, and the Boxers themselves aren't great at doing damage. You can easily miss OTK chances that another deck would take easily. This deck also struggles, like Trickstar, to beat over large attack monsters, here more than 2,400 points, without a bit of manipulation or high rolling. 2, it's extremely sensitive to hand traps. Promoter being ashed or impermed pretty much ends your turn on the spot, and your lowest to the ground combo searches twice at minimum, so you end up having to play Crossout Designator and Called By to insulate your plays against Droll. And 3, as with most non-meta decks, it really struggles to go second against competent boards. Having your normal summon be removed from the field often spells the end of your turn, and this problem is exacerbated by the fact that Sparer, your only real extender, fades your battle phase and makes Zeus plays going second to interrupts extremely rough and unlikely. Overall, the Boxers are coherent, but not particularly powerful. Don't expect to see any of these cards, except maybe King Depsy, at an event anytime soon. Thanks so much for watching. A huge shouts out to all of my patrons, but specifically Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ben Mizera, Brett Henry, Bizin Queen, Chaotic Meatball, Kristen Malone, Da Bears, Darkmaster Zork, Derpin Dragon, DJ Elephant, Executive Slifer, Gabe the Green, John Piet, Jordan Kuntz, King Magic Ruler, Knight Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Materiality, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Melfi Stan, Mike Carlotti, NH6574, Puffins of Doom, Rose Lapine, Solar Flare, The Hollow King, Tootsie, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, Yuki, and Yor. I couldn't have done it without you.